They did it again. Once more, we were treated to twists and turns in the exciting story of the Bloodline. This storyline around the Anoa'i dynasty has been entertaining us for years.
Cause you're not family.
In the Monday Nitro on October 28, 2024, just days before Crown Jewel, several unexpected events occurred that truly deserve our attention and discussion regarding all the questions that arise. Did Jey Uso make the right choice? Will he be loyal to Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso despite everything they have done to him? What can we expect for them leading up to the Royal Rumble? And what about Sami Zayn in all of this? So, who will betray whom? Without further ado, grab yourself a coffee and let's talk about it together.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise.
Turbulence, Samoan in the Bloodline, let's go. But what happened in that role on October 28th, 2024 that left me in such a state? That's surely the question you're asking yourself. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it all to you. First of all, I want to remind you that it's quite incredible to have a storyline that has lasted this long. We could say it has been going on since, let's say, early 2023, purely everything concerning Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, who remains in what we could call the original Bloodline. But so much has happened since then. There has been the entire Bloodline with Solo Sikoa, who has formed in the meantime and has taken power in a certain way, along with Jey Uso, who faced Jimmy Uso at WrestleMania. A lot of events have happened since then, and yet it remains interesting and fresh. So specifically, what has happened? So hold on tight. Here we go. So in this Raw on October 28th, there was a promo between Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso, the twin brothers, and the content was very interesting. Basically, to summarize for you, it was Jimmy trying to convince, just like they have been trying to do with Roman Reigns for several weeks, Jey Uso to join them in their fight against the bloodline of Solo Sikoa, knowing that Jey Uso has been away for quite some time. Jey Uso has been in his own little world for quite some time, far from all of this. So indeed, one could say that it was really all over for him when facing Jimmy Uso at WrestleMania 40. It was somewhat the culmination for him of this separation from the bloodline and his self-assertion, the self-assertion by Jey Uso. So, it was definitely a bit like a return to the past for him. To be confronted again by Jimmy Uso and to be involved again in bloodline stories. But well, some things have happened recently. The bloodline of Solo Sikoa cost him his Intercontinental title, so we can say he has issues to resolve again. Even though there is a small inconsistency that I notice in all of this and that I didn't really like. Tell me if you agree with me. I find it quite strange that Jey Uso, at the moment, where Jimmy and Roman, or rather Jimmy, sent by Roman, would be a more accurate description of reality. We're trying to, let's say, convince him to join this fight against the bloodline of Solo Sikoa. At that moment, at the beginning, Jey didn't want to hear about it at all. There was no way. And it was only after they cost him his Intercontinental title that he agreed, let's say, to listen to these negotiations and ultimately join Roman and Jimmy in this fight. What is strange is that ultimately, from the moment they cost him personally in terms of competition, in terms of title, he wanted to join them in this fight. So we can already say that when he says, yes, it's family, I basically have to help my family. To summarize, and no matter what, the past is about blood ties, and there you go. Except that if that were really the case, there wouldn't have been a need to. Losing your Intercontinental title to want to join them in this fight doesn't make much sense. So we can say that it's not very coherent. It's a bit like they're joining this fight against the bloodline for purely sporting reasons. Well, purely competitive reasons, basically. You cost me my title, you're going to pay. Well, no, the essence of this story is that, no, it's about family above all, above personal disputes anyway. I find it a bit strange, but let's get back to the point. So, there was a back and forth between the two, and the summary is that Jimmy is trying to convince him, while Jey, even though he's not an easy person to win over, I would say, doesn't easily let himself be reclaimed, far from it, but still ends up accepting. However, it was much more interesting and definitely deeper and subtler than that. Fortunately, you know how much I hate everything that is superficial and sugary. It wasn't a sugary segment, honestly. It was a Jey who, despite ultimately agreeing to join Jimmy Uso, an ally with his former allies, I want to say. But still, who are his family to fight this battle, this war against a bloodline he hates even more? It's somewhat choosing the lesser evil for Jey. Basically, he's not really a big fan of Roman and Jimmy, but for him, Solo, Sikoa, and his henchmen are worse. In short, there are questions that will arise, and we will try to answer them a bit later, so stay tuned. So, Jey wasn't easily swayed or convinced either. He said they still had things to sort out. He refused Jimmy Uso's hug, who on the other hand was quite happy, and he also told him, "We, not the ones either." So basically, that's the idea. The main idea is that yes, I want to help you. We will resolve this situation together, but we haven't returned to the top. We are not the best, because that was the phrase, the idea, let's say, of we the one, which is that we are the chosen ones, we are number one. So he was announcing in a way that they are no longer number one, and he reminds them of that just like, and I really like that. He still recalled that the last time he had seen Jimmy Uso, well, when they had really been together in the ring, was at WrestleMania 40. Remembering that match they had against each other is still significant. Moreover, remembering their match at WrestleMania, it feels strange to see them back in the ring, talking together. In any case, it's a Jey who also said, "I don't want us to be like yes, yes, yes men. Guys who say yes to everything and are basically the henchmen, the slaves of Roman Reigns." What Jey Uso raises by saying this is very interesting. We can clearly see and feel that he has been mocked, and still is, by the treatment he received from Roman Reigns. During his entire time in the Bloodline, we can say between 2020 and 2023, come on, 2023, running through 2023, with everything that happened in 2023. A lot happened, I tell you. In any case, Jey Uso is ready to join Roman Reigns and Jimmy, but not at any cost. Basically, we feel that he will not accept a dynamic like before, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing because we shouldn't do exactly as before. From an entertainment perspective, I don't want to see it. I don't know about you, but I think it's the same for you. I don't want to see a Jey Uso who is a henchman for Roman Reigns and who interferes in almost all his matches. That's heavy, it's boring, in fact, it's repetitive. It would really be recycling, but not the good kind of recycling, and I don't want to see that again. So I wonder where this is leading. Is it in the coming times they will ally, collaborate, and reform the original Bloodline, the OG Bloodline, I would say, but still having difficulty doing so, with Jey Uso, who has taken on another dimension in the meantime, having won his first solo title of his entire career and has really established himself as Arrow, raising very interesting questions, all of that. But well, it wasn't over since they had. So I somewhat regret that because it's still almost the climax of each segment with the Bloodline, a general brawl with the Bloodline as Solo Sikoa arrives. Obviously, that's my complaint about everything surrounding it, but I want to say it's not unique to the Samoan style. It often happens in promos and segments of all kinds. It's rare that it doesn't end in a fight one way or another in WWE, but so be it. The fact is he came to take them down, but Jey escaped a destruction that could have been fatal at the hands of Jacob Fatu. And the way it happened made me chuckle a bit. I thought to myself, this is still strange. Jacob Fatu is creating a scene by setting up a chair around Jey Uso, giving a nice nod to Umaga. Once again, even if it's somewhat of a personalized version of the Samoan wrecking ball. You know, it's that famous move where Umaga would get into a corner of the ring and charge at full speed, with his backside forward at the guy he had put down in the opposite corner of the ring to really smash his face. Well, this was a bit of a Jacob Fatu version, but he couldn't pull it off because all of a sudden Jey managed to get that chair off and threw it right at his face. So what made me laugh quite a bit was that all of a sudden he regained his composure and managed to get out of that trap. Just like that. Well, at the same time, it was necessary to keep Jey Uso in shape and ready for Crown Jewel. Since, yes, I remind you, just now, where these scenes took place at Raw, we are just a few days away from Crown Jewel. And we especially learned what match would take place there, involving the Bloodline. Hold on tight, it's not really what I wanted, but it's still interesting, we'll get to that. So, There was a fight with the Bloodline, obviously, and above all, what I found most exciting at Reeve was what happened later. Since backstage at Raw, later in the show, we already saw an exchange between Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. Sami wanted to talk to him one-on-one without Jimmy being present, and he was telling him, "Jey, suddenly everything is settled, but you forgot how Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso treated you all those years. You forgot how much Roman got into your head and made your life miserable, basically. All of that doesn't matter anymore." Jey Uso was telling him, "Yeah, but you can't understand." To Sami, who was saying, "No, I'm not for Roman or Solo. I'm for you, Jey." But Jey was explaining to him that he wouldn't be able to understand all of this because he is not family. And you can feel that it broke the poor Sami's heart. Who is returning in a role in which I find him the most interesting, it's true. Because whether we like it or not, I personally think that everything surrounding Sami Zayn, his rivalry, well, there was a rivalry at least with Gunther, which seems to have been put on hold while Gunther goes to face Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel. In short, I'm not a fan, let's say, of Sami Zayn himself in his solo stories. On the other hand, when he has that good conscience of Jey Uso, which he has often had since around 2022, he who wanted, by the way, I am personally nostalgic about it, I think we are. Many fans remember the time when he sought to join the Bloodline at all costs, wanting desperately to be a part of it. Even though he isn't really one, at least not originally. He still managed to win over the hearts of not only the fans but also the Bloodline. But all of this clashed, so to speak, with his older loyalties. To Kevin Owens, we remember that epic cinematic scene that took place at the Royal Rumble 2023. In short, seeing Sami Zayn with Jey Uso inevitably brings back everything that happened back then. It was incredible, full of twists and turns. Sami Zayn was loyal to the Bloodline, then to Kevin Owens, and somehow managed to make Jey Uso realize that this Bloodline is martyring him, dragging him down. In short, he uses him, which ultimately led to Jey Uso taking off on his own. Anyway, it's pretty crazy. And I want to emphasize it and for us all to applaud this together. It's rare to see current WWE wrestlers and remember so many things about them, thinking to yourself, wow, they really have a crazy past. It's true. It's true that there are some where there is even more history, but it's still too rare. And it deserves to be highlighted that there are current wrestlers who have such depth and such a story together. It's really cool to see. In short, Sami Zayn's heart was broken when Jey told him that he is not part of the family, despite Sami Zayn having helped and supported him. Without Sami Zayn, Jey Uso would probably still be Roman Reigns' lackey. In this story, Jey seems to have forgotten this and appears to prioritize and listen more to his blood ties rather than to someone who is certainly not his family from a biological standpoint. But who is still someone who has, on the other hand, always treated him well and has always sincerely supported him, at least since the beginning. So, is Jey Uso making the right choice by not really listening to Sami in this situation? By telling him, no, I am going to help Roman and Jimmy despite the past, despite what you say, Sami, I don't care. You are not family. They are. And I basically have to help them. They don't listen, so Jey Uso doesn't listen to Sami. But wasn't it a terrible mistake knowing what happened afterward? Because yes, later on we saw Jey and Jimmy exchanging once again backstage. And at that moment, what do they see? Moreover, it was quite a cinematic scene. Once again, it's the kind of scene you would expect in WWE, which really fits with this new production where we are trying some visually original things in terms of camera work, shots, and staging. So personally, as a movie fan, it's cool to see. In this case, you had Jey and Jimmy talking in the foreground of the shot. So now, questions arise, questions flood our minds. Is Sami Zayn going to turn to the dark side? Has Sami Zayn decided to rather, finally, adding to this entire war of the Anoa'i dynasty, but this time being on the side of the bloodline of Solo Sikoa, rather than joining, as one might have expected, and as he would have done since 2023, the camp of Jey Uso. Does this mean that Sami Zayn feels betrayed? Has he had his heart broken to the point where he has gone to make a pact with the enemy? That's what we can imagine in any case. And from there, I have a lot of questions for you. Because, well, even though we should still remind ourselves that in the meantime, the card for Crown Jewel has been officially announced. What are we going to have at Crown Jewel? Don't be afraid, it's coming. At Crown Jewel, we are not going to have a Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa, as I would have liked. In the end, perhaps, it's better this way that the match is delayed. We're not going to have a match either. What could we have imagined? A 5-on-5 match or a 6-on-6, it doesn't matter. No, none of that. We are going to have a 3-against-3-4 match with Roman Reigns and the Usos on one side against the Bloodline of Solo Sikoa, who are therefore for Solo Sikoa, the Tongans as I call them, and Jacob Fatu. So, already, what I have to say as a comment on this is that I find it interesting. So the fact that it's a 3-against-4 is still quite interesting. I think that already they are in quite a disadvantageous situation. The OG Bloodline is clearly a situation that puts them at a disadvantage. So, logically, they should struggle. They should even, I want to say, lose normally against Solo Sikoa's Bloodline, which obviously promises that all of this will lead somewhere. And that's what I regret a little, that a match at Survivor Series in War Games mode is predictable. With on one side, we can imagine Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and maybe Cody Rhodes. And now, the mystery is who could join that camp. Well, I would say that will probably be all their work in November. The time to recruit unless maybe Cody Rhodes won't even be part of it in the end. He already has enough on his plate with Kevin Owens, and on top of that, there will have been Gunther in the meantime. In short, I think that in November, it will be the recruitment of members to complete Roman's team. And on the other side, given what happened with Sami Zayn, we might say that in the War Games match, they will face Solo Sikoa, the Tongs, Jacob Fatu, and Sami Zayn. And there, I say bingo. There, I say it's interesting. It's interesting to see Sami Zayn join this bloodline, which is, it's true, I am not the biggest fan of Solo Sikoa's bloodline, if only because I think they missed some creative opportunities with Jacob Fatu in terms of intimidation, making him too human, and having Solo Sikoa adopt a completely different character from what he was as a member of Roman Reigns' bloodline, which suited him much better, where he was much quieter, much more expressionless, and much more threatening. In the meantime, he throws you some exotic costumes. He has a behavior that is far too exuberant. He is, I don't know, he hasn't convinced me in this role so far, even though I like Solo Sikoa. I find it unfortunate. Overall, he could be much better. And for all these reasons, I think it's good that this bloodline, which hasn't convinced me, and is clearly, we can say, the B team of the bloodline, shouldn't be forgotten. Basically, what has happened since WrestleMania 40 is that we have the Bloodline A team, which has taken a vacation. And who is the A team? It's Roman Reigns and The Rock. We could even say the Usos too. Well, they are a bit, let's say, they are not the best players. So during this break, we had to continue the Bloodline. And thus, we set up a whole storyline with the B team. It's true, it's the B team. Solo, Sikoa, the Tongs, and Jacob Fatu. For me, they are somewhat the lesser stars of the bloodline. But still, I think they could have done better to make them more important and more worthy of the A-team, precisely. Especially since, unfortunately, that's also what's disappointing about all this, is that we can well suspect, unless there is a truly unbelievable twist. At this point, we can well imagine that all of this will lead to the bloodline, or rather the alliance around Roman Reigns, having its happy ending and getting its revenge. And if it's not right away, it's postponed to the day when Roman Reigns will have defeated, we imagine, The Rock. One can easily imagine that there is very little chance that the bloodline of Solo Sikoa, the B team, will come out victorious from this great war. But well, maybe what will happen at Crown Jewel and the times that follow will shake things up a bit. In any case, I find that the fact that Sami Zayn is more or less teaming up with Solo Sikoa suggests that he could be on his team, their team, at Survivor Series War Games. One wonders who will join the clan around Roman Reigns to still form a complete team. So we wonder, will Cody Rhodes be there? Could a Randy Orton make it? That would be quite surprising, but why not? Could we have new members of the Bloodline joining in? I'm thinking of Asila Fatu, for example, the son of Umaga. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. By the way, I have a rant. Personally, it's the kind of detail that annoys me and drives me crazy. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. But have you noticed that on the poster for the match at Crown Jewel, Roman Reigns is wearing the famous necklace that symbolizes the title of Chief of the Tribe? For me, it's a sacrilegious detail to leave it on Roman in the current situation where he no longer has it and where Solo Sikoa has it. I find it stupid to do that. It's a lack of care, a lack of logic. The whole idea, I imagine, is to lead to a match between Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa to win or regain Ulafala. And yet, on the graphics for the matches in the meantime, you leave Roman Reigns with Ulafala. So, I imagine, knowing WWE, well, being used to what they do. They probably did photo shoots with Roman Reigns where he still had it, and they said, well, let's leave it like this. It might be too complicated to Photoshop all of that. Whatever, people won't notice. But no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's like, basically, you're putting together a graphic for the moment when it will happen with Roman Reigns against The Rock. For example, to be the true chief of the tribe. And if Roman Reigns still hadn't beaten Solo Sikoa and hadn't had his revenge in general by then, it wouldn't make sense for him to have Ulafala, for example, in the footage to promote this match. It wouldn't make sense. That's true. Anyway, I didn't like it at all. But all the questions it raises, and that's what's interesting in the end, is that we already wonder what will happen at Crown Jewel. Will the OG Bloodline be able to collaborate together despite the different tensions between Jey on one side and Jimmy, as well as with Roman? Will they be able to put aside the past to defeat Solo Sikoa's Bloodline? Personally, I think that for the sake of the story, they need to win, basically, but not right away. The bloodline of Solo Sikoa also needs to be legitimized and made strong and threatening. It's true that we shouldn't forget that at Bad Blood Roman and Cody defeated Jacob and Solo. And so, they really need to regain legitimacy, the bloodline of Solo Sikoa. What could be better? Well, it's true that a 4 against 3, even if they win, isn't exactly a highly rewarding victory because they had one more person. But well, I think that it's better for the story that Solo Sikoa, well, should he pin Roman Reigns, which is quite a big deal. Honestly, it's certain that by doing this, you immediately give a lot of credibility back to Solo Sikoa. And it's not a bad thing, it's needed. But I think they might not dare to do it. Still, I'm open to being surprised. And maybe a Jey Uso would take the fall for Solo Sikoa, for example. In any case, at Crown Jewel, Solo needs to be shown as strong and threatening again in order to justify the very predictable battle that has been anticipated since SummerSlam, in reality, at Survivor Series War Games. What I wonder most, and perhaps this is the question that intrigues me the most at this moment, is that the outcome, we know it, we can imagine it, is that Roman Reigns, to truly fulfill his quest, to become the chief of the tribe again, to return to the top of the mountain, to redeem himself, to take his revenge for everything he has experienced. Since WrestleMania 40, essentially, the fact of losing his status, losing his title, being in a decline, symbolically, we know that the culmination should be a Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa, or maybe, perhaps one day we will learn that The Rock is actually behind the entire bloodline of Solo Sikoa. A Roman Reigns versus The Rock for the title of Tribal Chief, final boss against Tribal Chief, which would be the logical conclusion to all of this. But I think the intermediate step, whether it might be, it could even be after Roman Rock in reality, but still, I think that given how things are going, it might be better for it to happen before, in order to deserve to face The Rock, and then to potentially get back in the title race for Cody Rhodes, he must defeat the one who took his place, Solo Sikoa. So I wonder, when will this Roman against Solo take place? Is he saving it for the Royal Rumble? I want to see. This is really something that intrigues me. Given their organization, I wonder if he might reserve this Roman against Solo Sikoa for the first show on Netflix. Is it? They are going. They might keep it for later, with The Rock back in the meantime. Give me your theories. I'm looking forward to it, with pleasure. And by the way, I take this opportunity to thank you for all your comments, often exciting, and all these likes, and your activity on the channel, which obviously helps me, and it keeps the channel alive. It's great. We share all this, it's enjoyable, so don't hesitate. Express your opinions, share your theories, make your little predictions, play your games, I want to say, and we'll see where all this leads. In any case, we will follow the Bloodline, Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, and maybe in the meantime, a first hero on Netflix worthy of a PL. Who knows? There is a sense of ambition in any case surrounding this role. So I think there is a strong chance that the Bloodline will be involved. Anyway, we will follow all of this closely, and it is likely to be very interesting. We hope so at least, and we will see where the Bloodline will lead us in the coming months.
We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?